Welcome everyone to the day 25. Again, a very basic and the core concept that we're going to cover today. Irrespective of programming language, we know that you have to deal with the file. Sometimes you have to read from a file, sometimes that you have to write to a file, and it's a very common operations. Java also have a very extensive support of file handling. I won't call it as file input output. How do we do it? What are the different interfaces, different classes, different methods which support those? Let's see that in hands-on manner in this video. Perfect. So now since we have understood the exception handling, let's try to talk about some IO operation or how to handle files, read and write in the world of the Java itself. Let's get started. So let's get started with the code itself. So as you can see on the screen. So to do this, we know that if you want to go and write anything, we have something called system.out, and if you see here system.out.println, right? And if I go and say here hello world and run this program, in the console you see that hello world got printed. Let's try to decipher that what happened. I'm able to do because, see, if I go and remove this line, right, this whole thing, right, let me go to the system open declaration. So if I go and see this out, the type of this out is print stream. Out of this out is print stream, with the help of which I'm able to go and print things. Similarly, just like system.out, we also have something called as system.in. And if you go and try to see go to the declaration, this has something called as an input stream. Now input stream which you see here, the input stream which you see here on the screen right now, right, this input stream, this is used to take the input from the user. So we'll try to see first of all that, let's say that my use case is to go and take the input from the user from the console. I know that if I have to go and print it, I go and say the system.out.println. But now instead of printing it, I want to take the input back from the user from the console itself. How do I do it? Let's try to see that. So for doing that, what we do here is that I go to back to my code in application.java file. And here I'll make use of a class called as a scanner class, right? So I go and take up a class called as a scanner, right? Input equals to new scanner. Now this scanner class is again from the java.util package, right? The scanner class is from the java.util package. Now let's go to the definition of this scanner class. I go to the open declaration. Now let me go and remove this. This scanner class, if I go and try to and I look around the constructor of this scanner class, and these are all the fields, and these are all the fields that we have. And if I go and see that this scanner class also has a constructor which takes the input stream as a constructor argument, right? So if I go and open my, if you see here, there is a constructor which takes the input stream, right? So now let me go here in the application, and here I go and say that system.in. We know that system.in is nothing but of a type input stream. So I go and initialize this input. And then let me go and say that sysout system.out.println. Here I go and say that enter the number. And then what I go and do is that I go and read this input dot next line. Whatever that it is storing as a string. So I go and store it as a string. entered text. Since it is a text, so let me go and call enter the text. And whatever the enter text, let me go and print out. So I go and say that enter text. Let's really run this and see if it works. So if I go and run as Java application, as you can see here, if you focus here, my code is still running. It's blocked here. It is not going to the next line. So what I need to do is that let me go and put here something called as I am Vishwa. Hit enter, and as soon as I enter, it goes to the next line and prints I am Vishwa. So this line, if you see here, I'm initializing a scanner object or instance called as input. Then I am prompting that you enter the text. Then I'm reading those texts in the form of the enter text, and then I'm printing it. If I want to do the same thing in the loop multiple times, I can write multiple times. Say for example, this entire code I can go and write inside a loop. So I can go and say that for int I equals to 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus, and this entire code inside that. So let me go and x, put inside this, right? And if we go and rerun this. So when I go and run this, enter the text, hello, I go say that hello again, hello from Vishwa, third time, hello finally. And now I cannot do it, right? So I can go and run it for the multiple times. So now since we have been able to take the input, now let's try to understand that how we can deal with the file itself. Let's see that. Now let's start reading the content of a file. So for doing that, what we do is, let me go and define, so this is my source folder. Inside this is a file called read from file.java. Let me go and define a file called as public static void main string args. Fair enough. Now, since I have to read the file, I'll have to make use of a class called as file. So file equals to new file. Now file belongs to the package called as java.io. It belongs to the package java.io.file, right? And it expects a file path. So let me give a file path called as myfile.txt. So let me give a file path here as myfile.txt. Fair enough, I have done this. After I have read the file, what I need to do is that I'll make use of scanner object, scanner equals to new scanner. Now this scanner also takes file as a argument, so I have taken this, perfectly fine. Now as soon as I go and do this, there's a chance that the file might not exist, right? So here, when I'm trying to read this is throwing some kind of checked exception. Let's try to go and see that if that's the case. So if I go to the declaration of this, right, open declaration, I see that when I go and call the constructor scanner with the file source, it throws a file not found exception. And this is an example of a checked exception. And we have seen some time back in the exception handling that if it is a checked exception, then it has to be properly handled. So I go back to my reading from the file.java, and I have two options. One of the option is that I go and throw this in the signature of the main method, or I go and apply the try catch block. So what I go and do is that, let me go and click on this and surround with the try catch block. So I go and select this option called as, so if I go and so I go and click here and I'll go and surround with the try catch block. Okay, so I have surrounded with the try catch block. Now once I have this scanner defined, let me go and call the scanner as, let's rename this to something called as input. Okay. I go in this, run a while loop, and I go say the while input dot has next line. Till the time this will have the next line, I go and say that string line equals to input dot next line, and then I go and print that out. And then what I typically do is that I go and close this input. So I go and do this input dot close. Let's try to run this. At this point of time, when I go and run this, it is throwing exception, no file not found exception, right? This exception is coming up because there is no such file. So what I need to do is that let me go and create a file called as myfile.txt. So let me go and create a new file, and let me go and call it as myfile.txt. And here I get the hello world, I am Vishwa Mohan, let's master Java. So now, since I have done this, let's try to run this code because it's myfile.txt is available now. If I go and run this as a Java application, it is still saying that no such file or directory. Can you guys think of that why am I getting this error? Now can you guys tell me that why I am getting this error? Even though I have this my file, even though I have this myfile.txt written here, and I have given this path, but I'm still getting me this error called as myfile.txt, no such file or directory exists. It is happening because I have just provided the name of the file. I have to actually specify the location of the file. In the world of the Java project, everything has to be done with reference to the source folder. So I have this source folder, and I have to do with reference to this. So inside the source, I have a com folder, and then I have the emerge folder, and then I have this myfile.txt. So I have to go and provide the entire path. So what I can go and do here is that I can go and say that src/com/emerge/myfile.txt. Let's try to go and run this now. So if I go and do this, let me go and save. And now everything which was the content, hello world, I am Vishwa Mohan, let's master Java, I am able to read it one after the another. So this was the first example that we go and read the content of the file using the scanner class. Let's try to understand the same example with the help of something called as a file reader or a buffer reader. Fair enough. So let me go and define another class here, and let me go and call it as understanding buffered reader. So again, in order to execute the code, you need to have the public static void main. So I go and say the public static void main string args. Now very first thing, I'll have to go and read about the file. So I can say that file equals to new file, and let me go and call it as myfile.txt. Now I have to go and import this, right? So what I need to do, I need to go and import the file, right? So this has come up. Once I have done this file, what I need to do is that I have to go and make use of the file reader. So I go and say that file reader equals to new file reader, and inside I go and pass the file. Fair enough. Now this file reader, if I go and try to see the source code of this, open declaration, there's an error which is trying to show up. Let me first of all go and surround with the try catch block. Now if I go and see that why it's file not found exception, because if I go and open this file, if I go and open the file reader here, you can see that it is throwing a checked exception called as file not found exception, right? It's throwing this file not found exception. That's why when I'm here, I have to go and provide a try catch block. Now using this file reader, I have to go and create something called as a buffered file reader, buffered reader. I go and call it a new buffered reader, which takes this file reader FR, perfectly fine. And this buffer reader will now help me to go and read the line. So I can say string line equals to buffer reader dot read line. Now this itself, what I need to do is that I have to go and apply the catch clause, because this read line is throwing IO exception. So I go and read the line. Fair enough. So if I try to go and run this line of code, run as, again it will go and show me that no such file or directory, right? And it has come inside this. The reason is that I have to go and provide the full path of my file.txt. So what I go and do is that from the previous, right, I just go and copy the path because the file is the same, and then I go and provide this entire path. If I go and run this now, nothing is printing up because I have not printed anything. So if I go and do this s, and I can do this sys out and pass line and run this, it's printing hello world, the first line of this text. Now if you see here, I'm doing few things which is not right. I have this file reader, I have this buffer reader. Once I'm done reading the file, I should ideally go and close them just to release the resources, right? And I should go and close them whether I'm able to successfully read or I'm not able to successfully read, in both the situations. So a better place for them to, for us to achieve this is that I go to my finally, and here I should go and say that fr dot close, and I should also go and say that br dot close. But if you see here, when I'm trying to call this method called close on the file reader and the buffer reader, I'm getting this error here. I'm getting this error here. What are those? This is because this file reader and the buffer reader is there inside this try block. This is starting bracket and this is a closing bracket, and this file reader and the buffer reader is all inside the try block itself, which is within a block scope. So that's why this fr or br is not visible here. You cannot go and see here. So if I have to make fr br visible inside this, I'll have to go and define outside that. So what I'll do now is, let me go and copy this definition of file reader outside, and similarly I'll go and define this buffer reader outside, and I'll just remove this file reader. I'll remove this buffer reader, save this, and now I'm doing fr.close. Now I'm trying to close this fr.close. At that time itself, there's a if I go and open this method, right, I have to go and surround with the try catch block. Same thing I'll have to go and do here. Now there's another error which is I'm coming here. The local variable may not have been initialized, so I have to go and initialize. So what I'll have to go, I'll go and say that fr is equals to null and br is equals to null itself. Now if I go and write the code, this is a good code that I have written, but here again there is a challenge. Let's assume that this file is not correct, file1.txt. If I go and run this now and see the stack trace, first of all I got a file not found exception which is inside this. This is perfectly fine because I'm printing it up. But then I have got a null pointer exception, boss. Can you see here? I have also got a lava lang null pointer exception. And where does that happen? Can you guys make a guess? How does the null pointer exception happen? The null pointer exception has happened because, see, the exception happened at this point of time. The exception happened here itself. and since it happened, this line never got executed. So my BR is still set to the null. Fair enough. So when I came down and I'm trying to do the br.close, this BR is still null. And on the null, if you try to go and invoke any method, it will go and throw you the null pointer exceptions. So what will be the better way of doing it? The better way of doing it with that, I should go and typically go and check if it is null. So instead of doing this, I should go and say that if fr is not equals to null, then only I should go and do the fr.close. And same way, if br is not equals to null, then only I should go and do the br.close. So I go and run this, run as. Now you see there's only file not found exception because file is not correct. Fair enough. So every time you go and read the file, this finally block is very common. Every time you will have to go and close all the resources that you have opened. Now till before Java 7, everyone has to compulsorily do it. But with the Java 7, the Java maker said that this is such a common thing, we should try to take that out, abstract it out, make the life of the programmer much easier. And then a new concept came up which is called as try with resources. Try with resources. So the same entire code which I have written right now, right? What I can do is that inside my try, what I do is I go and define this file reader fr. What I go and do now is that I go and define with file reader fr equals to new file reader, and then I have BufferedReader BR equals to new buffered reader. And I remove this, and these two goes away. And then I don't need to go and provide anything inside this finally clause. And now if you see, the same thing happens, but it has become much more succinct. The same thing is, but it's become much more succinct. If I go and save this and run as, I'm getting the same file not found exception because the file is not present. If I go and remove this, I should be able to read the first line very well, and I'm able to read the hello world. So using this try with resources, if you can see here in this try block, all the resources are here. These are called the resources. And what are these resources? These are those resources which goes and implements the closeable interface. So whether you see the file reader or the buffer reader, all of them are implementing a closeable interface. Let's try to deep dive and see if that actually how the case is. So I go to the definition of the file reader, right? So I go to the open declaration, I go to the file reader, it extends input stream reader. Let's go inside the input stream reader. So the file reader extends input stream reader. Let's go inside the input stream reader. Is taking the reader. Let's go inside the reader, which you can see is that this reader implements the closeable interface. And if I go inside the closeable interface, it extends something, another interface called as AutoCloseable. And this AutoCloseable has a method called as close. So the any class which goes and implement this AutoCloseable will have a close method, and that could be used in the try with the resources. So you don't have to actually go and rely that what all methods are there internal in the Java. Almost all the input, all the IO operation classes are implementing this closeable interface. If we want, we can go and create our own. Let's try to see that how we can do it. So let's say that, let me go and close all these. And inside this, let me go and define a class new class, and let me go and call it as my class. And let me go and open the public static void main method also. So this my class had something called as implements auto closeable. Now as soon as I go and do it, I'll have to go and add the unimplemented method, which is the close method. Inside this, I just go and write something called as a out closing now. Fair enough. And inside this public static void method, I have to go and call this. So what I go and do, I go and do the try, and inside this resource I go and say that my class equals to new my class, and then inside this let me go and write something called as out hello world, and then I have something called as catch. So I go and run this. It has first printed the content inside this block, which is the hello world, and then finally whatever that is there inside the resource that I have provided, that has to be closed. So this close method has a method called closing now, so this closing now is getting executed. So with this we have concluded all the important concepts that I feel that you should be aware, that how do you read write. So we made use of scanner, we made use of file buffer reader, and I think we are all set now to move to the next advanced topics. So finally we have come to the end of day 25. Only 5 more days to go and complete the 30 days challenge for completing Java. It was a long video today in which we talked about the different ways of reading and writing to a file. Please make sure that you're practicing them enough, write enough code to understand all these things in detail, because when you go and start working in the industry, you never know which way of reading, writing files will be needed. What is the experience of your learning? Keep on posting over the comments, share with your friends, because your small like, small share gets me motivated to bring similar contents at a very fast pace. Thank you, and I'll see you in day 26, people.